Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I want to talk about Sauber and their second seat that, as of the recording of this video, is still undecided who will drive that seat for 2025. Of course, we had the big announcement yesterday with Liam Lawson replacing Daniel Ricciardo for the rest of 2024. Didn't make a video on it. Felt there wasn't really a whole lot more to add in because it basically happened when I was asleep. So basically 5 hours or 6 hours basically after it happened when I woke up. But anyway, back on topic, back talking about Sauber. So I think for Sauber, obviously, it's been a pretty horrific season. We know Nico Hülkenberg will be driving for the team next year. And teammate is still a question. At this point, realistically, probably going to be the last remaining seat available for 2025, assuming that Lawson stays at RB, Perez stays at Red Bull. And at the top, I have kind of the four main options, and I just have some other drivers on the right hand side. So I think probably the favorite for this seat is going to be Valtteri Bottas, 35 years of age, 240 starts in F1. This is his third season with the Hinwil Sauber team. Hasn't been a great season though, I would say. Currently 22nd in the championship, 0 points. His teammate Zhou, 20th in the championship, but also 0 points. So Zhou basically just ahead on countback. Got an 11th place finish in that first race of the season in Bahrain, and that's really the only reason why he's ahead of Bottas. In terms of qualifying, though, this has been a complete demolition by Bottas. Head-to-head between himself and Zhou, 17-1 in his favor, with a median qualifying gap of just over half a second of 0.511. So qualifying's been very, very good for Bottas, and even though car hasn't been great, he hasn't really been able to show that by perhaps getting into Q2 regularly like he could have done last year. Just in terms of head-to-head against Zhou, qualifying still very, very good. Average starting position 15.5 for Bottas, and for Zhou it's 17.9. I think where things get a little bit tricky is the race results. So in the races, average finishing position for Bottas 15.7, and for Zhou 15.4. Again, 0 points. I don't have the head-to-head because honestly the head-to-head for Sauber has been such a mess this year. One driver would have a 30-second pit stop, end up like almost half a lap behind the other, and it was just super unrepresentative of what the driver's actual pace is. But the reality is that probably more often than Bottas would like, Zhou is finishing ahead of him in the race, and I think that's something that Sauber should be a little bit concerned about. But I think for Bottas, he's a steady pair of hands. Wouldn't rock the boat. You kind of know what you're getting. You're getting a pretty good qualifier. You're getting a guy who's, I think, okay, decent in the races. And I think he would definitely, together with Nico Hülkenberg, it would be a decent lineup for where Sauber is going to be in 2025, which is probably going to be towards the bottom of the grid. But there's going to be a lot of young drivers coming in. We're potentially going to have 4 rookies next year. We have Behrman, Antonelli, and Doohan all confirmed as of recording this video. And Lawson, at this point, given that he's going to be driving for the rest of the season, I would say 95% chance he'll be driving as well. So we got 4 rookies for next year. And, it definitely feels like there's a bit of a youth movement in F1, and seeing, Oliver Behrman have such great results with Ferrari and with Haas in these 2 kind of separate call-ups, and Colapinto doing, I think, a lot better than many people, myself included, expected. There's definitely kind of this youth movement in F1 right now. So I think if if Sauber decide that they want to go with a young driver, there are definitely quite a few options that they could go with. So I think in no particular order, but I would say probably from the strongest to weakest in terms of F1 potential. Starting with Gabriel Bortoleto, 19 years of age, currently driving in F3, of course, doesn't have any starts in F1. Just taking a little look at his history last couple of years. So he has actually a pretty interesting record. So 2021 in Freca, which is basically the level below Formula 3, he finished 15th in his first year. Did another year in 2022 where he finished 6th, which I think is, it's okay, but it doesn't really suggest F1 level talent. And then he has a massive improvement. 2023 wins at Formula 3 in his first year in a Trident car, so not a Prema. It's quite rare that F3 is won by anyone other than a Prema driver. But again, it happened this year with his name is Fornaroli, right? Fornaroli. So again, Trident winning Drivers' Championship back-to-back years. But nonetheless, really impressive result, kind of unexpected given his record in FRECA. Makes a step up to Formula 2, and again, he is leading the championship with 2 rounds to go in Qatar and in Abu Dhabi. Highly likely he either finishes first or second in F2, just given how much of a gap the top 2 have to third place. He has 2 wins, both of them being in the feature race, and he has 5 podiums total, 169.5 points. So generally, really good F2 season. Again, given that he's leading the championship, he would be, by many, expected to be the favorite going into those final rounds. And again, if he were to win F2, he would join Leclerc, Russell, and Piastri as rookie winners. And all 3 of those drivers are Grand Prix winners in F1. So very high bar. If you can win F2 as a rookie, it generally suggests that you're pretty much destined for greatness. Again, if I included GP2 drivers as well, that list might look a little bit different, but just looking at just the F2 drivers, very accomplished list. If you're curious, the median pole gap, so just looking at his statistics in qualifying, median pole gap 0.219 seconds, which is first in that F2 class. Not quite as good as Leclerc, not quite as good as Piastri, but if you're looking for other drivers in a similar ballpark in their rookie F2 seasons, George Russell was 0.212, and Jack Doohan, who of course will be on the grid next year, was 0.215. So again, very strong case for Bortoleto, but one big drawback is that he is of course a McLaren junior, so he's not a part of the Sauber kind of system or even the Ferrari system, which would have again made it a bit of an easier choice. But the fact is that McLaren aren't going to want to just let him go off to Sauber. They're probably going to want conditions saying, if something happens to either of our drivers, we have the right to take him back if a driver gets injured, or if Red Bull decides to sign Piastri for 2026 or whatever, we can grab Bortoleto right away. So again, Sauber's not going to want to do that. Or at least they're not going to be very happy about wanting to do that. Similar situation over here with their next driver, Franco Colapinto, 21 years of age, 3 starts in F1. He, of course, was called up to kind of be a stand-in driver to replace Logan Sargent for the rest of the year, given how poor Sargent's results were. He's currently 19th in the F1 Championship, 4 points compared to his teammate Albon, who has 8 over that time frame. But then again, those 4 points are still more points than Sargent and Latifi have scored in the last 2.5 years combined. So again, already looking pretty promising. If you look at, for example, qualifying statistics, again, sample size very small, doesn't mean a whole lot. He's 1 and 2, again, a bit of an asterisk with that one victory. It was in Baku when Albon basically couldn't set a lap time in Q3, or a second lap time in Q3, because he had a fan stuck in his car. And median gap is again 0.007, and that is from Singapore. Average starting position, 12.7 for Colapinto, 9.7 for Albon, but again, that's going to be dragged down quite a bit by Monza. Average finishing position, 10.3 for Colapinto, 8.0 for Albon. So of course, naturally a little bit below Albon, but coming in mid-season with no preseason testing, anything like that, and given that he's only had basically 2/3 of an F2 season, I think the results have been very good. Average pole gap, again, I talked about kind of his junior series career in my video, kind of when it was announced that he was replacing Sargent. But again, a bit similar to Bortoleto, except with the caveat that Colapinto was always in F3. FRECA was driving not great teams. He was never driving Premas. And again, driving for MP Motorsport, not really the strongest team. Average pole gap 0.593 seconds, which ranked 12th in this year's F2 season. So again, the qualifying, not amazing. A bit surprising that he's been as close as he has been to Albon. As at the time that he left, or as of the recording of this video, 7th in the F2 Championship, but he was 6th when he left the series to replace Sargent. 96 points, 1 sprint win, and 3 podiums. So again, another interesting option with F1, a bit of F1 experience. And again, by the time we get to the end of the season, he'll have basically 8 races, or no, let's see what it will be. It'll be 3.6, okay, 9 races. 9 races of F1 experience. So again, to Sauber, that might look like a bit of an interesting prospect. But again, like Bortoleto, Colapinto was a member of the Williams Junior Academy, so again, they're not going to want to just release him with no strings attached. So that's probably going to be a reasons why for both Bortoleto and for Colapinto, why it might be a bit difficult for them to be chosen for that Sauber seat for 2025. Now, last option, the last young driver that I'm kind of profiling here is a Sauber Junior. So if Sauber wanted to, they could sign this driver and they would have absolutely no problems contractually getting this driver on the grid next year. And that is, of course, Théo Pourchaire. 21 years of age, bit of an interesting junior career, had an exceptional Formula 3 season, finished second in his first year as a 16-year-old in 2020, makes a step up to F2, and it seems like that trajectory, that massive trajectory that we saw in 2020, over the next kind of 3 years, it doesn't quite, it feels like it just starts to kind of plateau out a bit. So 2021 finished 5th in the championship in his rookie season, not bad. 2022 second in the championship, again an improvement, but definitely a big gap between himself and eventual champion Felipe Drugovich. And then 2023 wins the championship, but on his third attempt. And I think F1 teams are definitely going to be a bit wary of signing F2 champions if they've won into the third year after the whole Nick de Vries experiment at AlphaTauri last year. He, of course, was dropped after 10 races, and even though he was an F2 champion, never really was quite up to the task. I think qualifying was, not great. It was all right, I would say. He was basically 2.5 tenths off Yuki Tsunoda in qualifying, and given that Ricciardo over this season has been basically, 1.75 tenths or so off of Tsunoda. Honestly, not that bad. But it was really in the races where Nick de Vries struggled. Again, I think there's going to be similar trepidation about signing drivers like Drugovich or Pourchaire because it's taken them 3 years to become champions. And then 2024, really a mixed bag. He did one race of Super Formula, won pretty terribly. Then did 6 races in IndyCar, was signed to be at McLaren, but then was dropped replaced David Mukakis, I believe, at McLaren's IndyCar team, and then he was replaced by a young American driver with a whole lot of money. I think the name is Seagull or something like that. But 6 races, best result of a 10th place in Detroit. Not absolutely mind-blowing results like, for example, Liam Lawson had in Super Formula in 2023. So hasn't done a whole lot of racing this year. And just, for reference, I have his qualifying data here. So again, same statistics as I used for Colapinto and Bortoleto, median qualifying gap. So 2021 is rookie season, 0.424 seconds. 2022 actually got a little bit worse, 0.461 seconds. And then 2023 is last year, 0.193 seconds, which is very good. But again, it took him 3 years to get to that point. So again, some question marks there. And just for reference, other drivers who are in similar ballpark for their rookie F2 seasons: Yuki Tsunoda 0.409 seconds, Logan Sargent 0.407 seconds, Lando Norris, surprising it was actually this low, but 0.436 seconds, and then Alex Albon 0.637. So I think qualifying probably good enough for F1. I wouldn't say like top 10, amazing potential like a Piastri or Leclerc or anything like that. But I think the qualifying would, for example, be better than Sargent perhaps, and perhaps be better than Zhou and Stroll. But again, F1 teams are looking for drivers with really high ceilings, and I'm not sure you really have that in Pourchaire the same way you have it in Bortoleto or even in Colapinto. Now, just looking at some other options, just basically throwing a ton of names on here. I'm not going to talk about them extensively, but just for argument's sake, deciding if they decide to go with none of these 4 drivers, there are still other drivers available. So Zhou Guangyu, the other driver in the Sauber seat, I think the qualifying has hurt him a lot. The race results are honestly decent, but I think the qualifying performance, the fact that his qualifying performances against Bottas have gotten worse every single year, they've been teammates, I think just suggests that he just isn't good enough for F1, and he generally isn't improving that much. Again, he does bring some money from China, but the rumors have been that sponsorship money from China has not been as much as they expected when they first signed him. And again, this is a team that's going to become Audi in 2026. They don't really need to be signing pay drivers, do they? Now, next up we have Mick Schumacher. I think we've discussed this quite a few times. German driver, German team, so again, natural fit there. But again, rumors have been that they don't want 2 German drivers, given that they've already signed a German driver, Nico Hülkenberg. For Mick Schumacher, I think the qualifying performance was just not good enough in F1. Crashed quite a bit. Race performance was honestly alright, but still, I'd say very highly unlikely it will be him. Felipe Drugovich, I think he's basically kind of assigned himself to Aston Martin. If Sauber came calling for his services, I'm sure Aston would be fine to let him go. However, but similar situation to Porsche, the fact that it took him 3 years to be F2 championship, I think F2 champion, I think definitely holds him back there. Daniel Ricciardo, I know it's been very, very much a fresh wound. I had actually written Ricciardo/Lawson because when I made the board, it hadn't actually been confirmed yet. But if Sauber really wanted, they could, I guess, sign Daniel Ricciardo. He, of course, has been teammates with Nico Hülkenberg before. Not sure how much of an interest Ricciardo will have in being in a team that's probably going to be the worst team on the grid next year. And again, in terms of just outright ceiling, I think you could argue that all 4 other of my main drivers here have much higher ceilings than Ricciardo at this stage in his career. Kevin Magnussen, steady hand, and again was teammates with Hülkenberg over last 2 years. Qualifying performance not quite there, I would say, despite the fact that he beat Mick Schumacher in their 1 year together. Hasn't really been up to Hülkenberg's standard in qualifying. Has definitely been very, very aggressive, cost himself some points, cost the team, not so sure, given that a lot of his penalty points that he accumulated very early in the season were from helping Nico Hülkenberg. And then at the bottom, I just have 3 other random drivers as well. Callum Ilott, I think would honestly, I'd be really interested to see him get a shot. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but analyzing the qualifying data from F2, looks like a very, very good qualifier. I think would be, in terms of just raw qualifying speed, could be a very good qualifier in F1, almost like a Nico Hülkenberg-like level. Not sure if he's ever going to get that opportunity. The results that he's had in IndyCar and in IndyCar haven't been great. I think the WEC results have been decent. Robert Schwartzman, almost the opposite situation of Ilott. Very, very good racecraft, race pace. Qualifying has definitely held him back. And I think driver teams will look at that, see that the qualifying's not so good, and I think we'll definitely be a little bit scared off by that. Then you have Paul Aaron, last guy on the list. I believe he's 4th in the F2 championship right now. Again, as a rookie, so again, decent result there. The results have definitely tailed off a little bit the last month or so, and he isn't attached to any F1 team. So in theory, if Sauber wanted to, they could probably sign him pretty easily. And again, this is a team that does have a history of signing rookie drivers. They signed Joe in 2022, signed Giovinazzi 2019, signed Leclerc 2018, Felipe Nasr 2015, Esteban Gutierrez 2013, Perez 2011, and Kobayashi in 2010. So this is a team that's definitely not afraid to hire rookies. And again, the fact that they're going to have Nico Hülkenberg there, one of the most experienced drivers on the grid, I think will also make them a little bit less hesitant to sign a rookie driver. That being said, it's kind of pretty quiet on the Sauber front at the moment. It does seem like Bottas is going to be the favorite, and if he's willing to take a 1-year contract, he would be probably the most likely guy for the role next season. But that being said, I do think it would be interesting. I think for Bottas it would be very, very harsh given his qualifying results, especially if he was dropped at the end of the season. But it would be nice to see some of these young drivers also get a shot, and especially Bortoleto, especially if he wins the F2 season, I would definitely like to see him get a shot on the F1 grid. But let me know your thoughts. Who do you think should get the Sauber seat for 2025, and who, maybe if the answer is different, who do you think will get the Sauber seat for 2025? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.